Thank you for the introduction. Mr. Carmelo Ferlito, CEO of Center for Market Education. Thank you for the invitation. Professor Fatoni, Vice Rector of Prasetya Mulia, one of the most reputable university in Indonesia. Distinguished panelists and guests, good morning. The organizer asked me to present about the economy, but I will try to relate it to the innovation. So it's quite clear that the Indonesia's economy is facing manifold challenges at the moment. External conditions have not been favorable for our short-term growth outlook since President Trump starts playing the tariff game. While the declining middle class population and stagnant consumption also plagues the economy from the inside. So recently we just know that the government just released the latest number. The consumption sector also declining lately. Slow progress towards further industrialization plays a large part in causing this problem. As lagging employment growth in the formal sector bar Indonesia's aspiring middle-class population to elevate themselves up the socio-economic ladder. It's with that concern in mind that I choose the title here, Innovate to Elevate, as the focal points of my speech today. Specifically, how pursuing industrial innovation is vital to propel our nation's economic trajectory forward. Despite the omni challenges, we stand a fascinating juncture, and the path we choose regarding innovation will define our prosperity for decades to come. Perhaps the next slide. But first, let us start by acknowledging where Indonesia is already shining. We are innovating in some areas quite successfully. Look at the digital space here, as this 2023 survey shows. Indonesians are leading the way in payment digitalization across Asia. A remarkable 68% of Indonesia's consumer report using cashless frequently now than before the pandemic, significantly higher than the Asian average of 56% survey customers. This rapid shift is largely thanks to the widespread of adoption of KRIS. And it's not just digital. While we continue to be a market for we are also continue to be a market for cultural products. Our cultural influence is growing significantly. So in the second chart here, we see, take Malaysia for example. Indonesian songs are increasingly dominating their top 100 lists. From just 2 songs in 2021, we saw 19 Indonesian songs breaking through the Malaysian radio waves in 2022. Perhaps Mr. Carlito noticed, Indonesian song right now is quite popular in Malaysia. An Indonesian animated movie titled Jumbo now holds the spot as the highest grossing Southeast Asian animated movies in history. This demonstrates our creative competence and soft power, despite still limited to narrow scope of popular culture. Next slide, please. So we see the dynamism in digital payments and cultural exports, but when we turn attention to industrial innovation, the picture becomes more concerning. This chart, which tracks countries' economic complexity index in 1990 and 2023, tells us crucial story. Many Asian countries, we see yellow dots here, have significantly moved above the horizontal line. They are now producing and exporting sophisticated, unique manufactured products, providing jobs and elevating the quality of life for millions of people. Where is Indonesia? We managed to keep our head above the horizontal line, while our Asian peers are head and shoulder above. We can see from the charts here. While we've made some progress, we lag significantly behind many Asian peers. Crucially, our progress since 1990 has not been as transformative as others like Vietnam, even Cambodia. We should look no further from our major exports products to explain the situation. As shown in the left-hand table, Indonesia's exports are primarily driven by commodities, namely coal, palm oil, and until recently, ferroalloys and nickel. While these commodities yield significant returns, the low complexity in producing these commodities did not force us to innovate. This reliance hinders our ability to move up global value chain and build more resilient, high-income economy. Next slide, please. Okay. The good news is that the government recognized this challenge. There is a strategy in place and identifying multiple pathways to boost industrialization, as outlined by the government in the 2045 Golden Indonesia Development Plan. We see three main tracks. First, the downstreaming policy has been expanded to involve not only mining products, but also agriculture and aquaculture products. The goals here involve creating forward linkages, for instance, with the domestic food manufacturing and biofuel sector, which is also crucial in the success of the government's efforts to enhance the domestic food and energy security. These are two main pillars of the government strategy to boost the domestic food and also energy security. Second, supporting basic industry will strengthen foundational industrial capacity in areas like commodity chemicals and iron and steel, which is essential building block for industries. Expanding the basic industry should help the government's import substitution policy, while also strengthening our global export share in these essential industrial goods. Third is the track towards high value manufacturing. This is the most ambitious tracks, targeting sophisticated and research-intensive sectors like pharmaceutical, electronics, and vehicles manufacturing. The goals here are both stepping up our role in global manufacturing supply chains and creating strong forward linkages to other high-value industries. Next slide, please. Having a roadmap is essential, but executing it requires significant leap in capabilities. This is where innovation upskilling becomes crucial. Let us look closer at some of the products the government wants to manufacture domestically, ranging from basic industrial inputs such as copper to high-end products like electric vehicles. Basic industrial inputs are not too complex to manufacture, and controls over raw materials highlights Indonesian advantage over other manufacturing countries. These products represent achievable steps which will move Indonesia towards the middle of the supply chain. But notice also the higher value targets such as chips, lithium-ion batteries, and electric vehicles. These products have much higher complexity index, showcasing the intricate manufacturing process needed to produce them. Indonesia also did not have existing manufacturing capacities needed to support this industry, as highlighted by the low distance, meaning that a significant leap in capabilities will be needed. The message here is very clear. While commodity downstreaming offers a doable pathway, pushing into truly high-value manufacturing requires much more than nationalistic jingoism. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, several roadblocks are hindering our ability to make that climb. We identify both market and people-related problems that hinder Indonesia's innovation capabilities so far. First, market-related problems. Our intellectual property protection rank capacity, while improving slightly, remains relatively weak globally, ranking 72 last year. This discourages deep R&D investment. Compounding this, we see companies cutting back on investment. The capex to revenue ratio for listed companies has trended downward, hitting 6.2% recently, far from peaks above 10%. Next are people-related problem. The second chart, yeah, down below. Worryingly, student performance on standardized tests like PISA has been declining across reading. Science, mathematics since 2015. This signals a challenge in building the foundational human capital needed for innovation-driven economy. Furthermore, we seem to struggle converting educational investment into research outcomes. Look at the LPDP data here. The ratio of research grants to scholarship expenses fell from 20% in 2020 to just only 2.1% in 2023. We are funding education but not effectively translating that into a robust research and innovation ecosystem. Next slide, please. So what can be done? While large economies offer some lessons, Indonesia unfortunately does not have the scale to compete with them. Perhaps we can find more contextually relevant insights by looking closer to home at our Southeast Asian neighbors who have successfully navigated the challenging pathway to innovation, upskilling, and industrial transitions. Look at Malaysia, semiconductor industry. Malaysia commands right now a significant 8.7% share of global semiconductor exports in 2023, securing the future of the economy as the AI revolution continues to move forward. Malaysia, of course, relies on foreign investment to build chips industry, a policy that Indonesia tries to emulate right now. Malaysia also offers packages of tax incentives to lure foreign manufacturers, in which Indonesia have also done, albeit with a different outcome. I have a conversation with Mr. Carmelo before that the paid-up capital in Indonesia is too high. 10 billion paid-up capital, comparing with in Malaysia is only 2 ringgit, Pak Carmelo. Yeah? So this is one of the hindrance also for Indonesia's investment. Consider also Thailand, yeah, the second chart here. Thailand's auto manufacturing success. With a 1.2% global export share, their journey offers lessons. They enforce local content requirements only after local supporting industry were sufficiently developed. With the countries opened its doors to foreign auto manufacturers in 1960, while the local content requirements were not in place until 1987. Thailand also benefits from the free flow of goods between Asian countries, as Thailand auto manufacturers rely on parts manufactured in Indonesia and Malaysia. And like Malaysia, they strategically use trade tension as a backdrop to promote their attractiveness as an alternative manufacturing center. Finally, we have Singapore's pharmaceutical sector to learn from. Now capturing 1.3% of global exports, Singapore's success confirms the economic case of sending our best talents to study abroad. However, unlike Indonesia, Singapore selectively grants scholarship for established workers in a highly technical sector. This accommodating the knowledge building necessary to develop research-intensive sectors such as pharmaceuticals. Singapore also fostered a powerful triple helix approach to build its innovation ecosystem, tightly integrating government, industry, and universities for market-ready research. And when domestically cultivated innovation is proven to be hard to achieve, Singapore is not afraid to use outward FDI, including using their sovereign wealth fund to acquire hard-to-develop technology and know-how. So perhaps you know Temasek right now controls science companies like German's Bayer and also South Korea Celltrion. Yeah. Despite its different pathways, these three examples share the common theme of targeted market-driven policies, relevant human capital development, cross-border strategic integration, and leveraging global dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, returning to our theme, innovate to elevate, Indonesia possesses clear potential demonstrated by our digital and cultural strides. The government has laid out a strategic direction for industrialization. However, the path particularly towards high-value manufacturing is challenging. It requires overcoming significant roadblocks in intellectual property protection, investment climate, education quality, and research translation. Crucially, it demands a concerted focus on innovating, upskilling, building the deep technological and human capabilities required. Learning from the tailored strategies of Asian neighbors might offer more practical blueprints than simply emulating economic giants like China. By combining strategic focus, addressing the systemic roadblocks, fostering a true innovation ecosystem, and learning from relevant successes like Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore, Indonesia actually can elevate its industrial base and propel its economic future. Thank you. Wishing all success for the second Innovation Summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak David Sumual, for your remarks. This reminds us of the roadblocks that hinder Indonesia's capability